We begin tonight in the Bay of Plenty township of Matata, where 34 properties, including 16 homes, have been identified as so prone to debris and heavy flooding that the District Council's own papers warn of, and I quote, loss of life risk. Tonight, Checkpoint can reveal those warnings were first sounded in 2005. In May of that year, Matata was swamped by debris after heavy rainfall. If you're watching on Sky, Freeview or Facebook, the pictures we're about to show you look like a tsunami has hit. A GeoNet report into what they call the disaster said, and again I quote, there are areas around Matata where it is unsafe to live. More warnings followed. Checkpoint has obtained that paperwork. But homes that have been destroyed or damaged or were on high-risk land were allowed to remain or be rebuilt. The council believed that they could mitigate the risk with a number of schemes, including a debris net. But that never eventuated. And now people who rebuilt after 2005 or who have bought in the high-risk area since then face removal. They want to know why it's taken 12 years to get to this point. We begin tonight with Michelle Beach, who was at home in May 2005, torrential rain falling, when she and her family heard a very loud bang.
And we didn't know what that meant at the time, but about 15 minutes, half an hour later, the whole neighbourhood just filled up with mud and debris. Didn't know where it came from. I was thinking, oh my God, what is that? He said, get in the truck, because he knew it was bad. So he went out, got in the truck, and I fluffed around in the girls' room trying to grab nappies and stuff like that, and looked out my window and just couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was like my neighbourhood was suddenly full of mud and debris, and yeah, I just couldn't believe it. Anyway, we got in the truck, drove out to my brother's front gate because he owns the section in front of mine. I was in the middle one. Saw what was coming from down the road and thought, oh hell, we can't drive out in that. So turned around, went back to the house, and then basically he had to kick the back door in because it was locked. I went in, pulled my dining table into the hallway, put a dressing table on top of that, a chair on top of that, climbed into the ceiling of a 10-foot stud villa because it seemed like the safest place to be at the time. And we floated around in that house for 3.5 hours on the night, just floating, thinking, shit, I hope we're not going to die. Boulders, trees, the size of, just amazing, the size of things, bashing around underneath the house. Eventually my house went into the gap between the house and shed in front and stopped moving. So my husband pushed some of the wall out and we jumped into the neighbour's house because his house was stationary. And yeah, looking out the windows, just couldn't recognise my neighbourhood.
What street were you on, Michelle?
We were on Clem Elliott Drive.
And were you allowed to rebuild there? What happened after 2005?
Well, what happened afterwards is that I didn't have the money to rebuild. I had small children and my urgent need was to get us back into a house of our own. So I've bought a house up in the middle of the town in Wilson Street, which is where I still live. But a lot of my neighbours rebuilt because in the beginning the council said, oh, we're going to build this really neat debris catchment net, even though we were all like, oh, whatever, you know? So
I just need to clarify this. So Clem Elliott Drive was where you were and that was severely damaged in 2005.
Severely.
So homes written off?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And after the flooding, you were allowed to return. Sorry, not you, but people per se were allowed to return to Clem Elliott Drive. Yeah,
because they were going to build the debris catchment net up until, I think, 2012 they decided, oh no, that was never going to work. Even though we were saying in the beginning, that's never going to work. But they haven't listened to us from the beginning.
Now, I have a Tonkin and Taylor document.
Yes.
It's a map, an aerial map, and in two flooding scenarios, Clem Elliott Drive appears on the aerial map as vulnerable to fatal injury in heavy flooding. Did you know that?
Yep.
When did you find that out?
Oh, I knew on the night of the 18th of May, after what happened to us.
So why were you allowed back? Why were people allowed to rebuild their lives there?
Because they were going to build this fantastic debris catchment net, right?
And was it ever built?
No, because they found out that The surrounding area is silt and boulders.
So people are still living there.
People are still living there.
The same area that was flooded in 2005, the area that is identified as vulnerable to fatal injury, people are still living there.
Yep.
And
that's because when they said, oh, well, we'll put this debris catchment net in and that'll catch all the debris and then it'll just be flooding that you will experience, right? So what they've done is they spent millions on expensive reports and all of this stuff saying, oh, you know, we're going to do this and we're going to do that, and they've never done any of it. All they've done is made Tonkin and Taylor really rich. They haven't paid anyone out. They let all these people build beautiful houses down there again by the sea.
So what do you want to say to the Whakatane District Council about the fact that they have known for some years now that there are people in Matata on a number of streets living in homes that are vulnerable to fatal injury in the event of heavy flooding?
Oh, I don't even know what I want to say to them. I'm just so angry with them for the 12 years of bullshit that we've put up with, of them telling us what we're going to do.
And this is not hypothetical. You've had that heavy flooding. You had that heavy flooding in 2005.
Yeah, I floated around in my house for 3.5 hours thinking me and my kids were going to die.
It now appears that some people are going to be required to leave.
Yeah, and I'm one of those people.
And do you know what terms you will retreat under? Do you know what sort of compensation or payment you will receive?
They will pay me $200,000 they've offered, which is what the section is apparently valued at back in 2004.
$200,000 full and final payment?
Yep.
How do you know that?
Because they came round just before Christmas with a package from the real estate agent saying this is what we're laying out, this is how much we're prepared to pay you.
And so having lived through 2005, having lived there for over a decade since, despite the risk of a severe flood event and what it might do in that community, you are now being compelled to leave.
Yeah.
Does any of this make any sense to you?
No. And, the council, they've changed hands. I think there's only one person that's still there that was there originally, and that's Jeff Farrell, the planning officer. Everyone else is different. The mayor's different. All the other councillors have changed. Do you know what I mean? It's like they've been able to pass the buck on to the next lot the whole time. They've spent millions and millions on consultants and patting themselves on the back for what a good job they're doing. And they've just shafted us. They're still shafting us.
That was Michelle Beach. Later in the program we'll hear from a homeowner, Marilyn, who rebuilt after 2005. She would have gone then, she tells us, if they'd been paid a fair value to leave. But they stayed and they started again because they'd been told the risk would be mitigated. And she's furious they're being asked to leave now.